the Smallmouth Crush podcast. If you're a hardcore angler, you've come to the right place. This is a weekly podcast that will interview some of the top smallmouth bass anglers in North America. Travis and his guest will discuss what it takes to consistently catch big smallmouth, and you'll get a glimpse inside the mind of a trophy smallmouth angler. And now, here's your host of the Smallmouth Crush podcast, Travis Manson.
Hello, welcome to the Smallmouth Crush podcast. My name is Travis Manson, and we have an excellent show planned for you. Getting closer and closer to the end. But there's still plenty of awesome information moving forward. In fact, season 2 of the Smallmouth Crush podcast is, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of work, but we'll get there. We'll get there together. Hopefully I can keep providing you guys some great content, both on the YouTube as well as all the other podcast platforms. Before we get to our next guest, let's talk about, of course, The Real Shot. Quickly becoming the go-to shop for bass anglers across the country. Huge selection, the most sought-after brands in fishing. You guys know it. Kitech, Megabass, Mickey, Ozuri, Megabass, Evergreen. The list goes on and on. Go over there, check them out. All kinds of goodies over there at therealshot.com. Use my code SmallmouthCrush15. You can get 15% off your first order. Very, very cool. We appreciate the Real Shot's support in this podcast all year long. All right, let's bring on our next guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Mike. Mike Mayan, how are you doing?
Good, sir. How are you, my friend?
Well, I'm doing well. So for the viewers and listeners that may not know a whole lot about Mike, we're going to learn all about him today. And Mike and I we've fished against each other for a number of years. He was one of those guys at the top of the leaderboards when I was trying to figure out how to get a limit back in the day.
Watching you ski from side to side of the lake over and over again.
That's right. You got to do what you got to do. But excited to have you on. I know you know how to catch a smallmouth or two, and I really want to dig in and pick your brain when it comes to smallmouth fishing, because you've had some awesome tournament finishes in the past. And I know you do some guiding and fun fishing, and you dabble in all kinds of different things, both largemouth and smallmouth. But we're going to really specifically talk to you, Mike, a little bit more about smallmouth fishing and kind of what makes you unique when it comes to that. But before we go there, if you could just give us a quick intro for anyone that may not be familiar with you, where you're located and all that fun stuff.
You got it, guys. How's everything going out there? I'm from the state of Wisconsin. I'm in a little small town called Rosendale up near Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Been tournament fishing for 31 years this year. Been guiding for 25 years, Mike's Quality Guide Service. I don't do it full-time. I have a full-time job doing working with Modern Women of America, so it's been phenomenal with that. Full-time guiding would wear me down. I'm getting old, so.
Right.
Yeah. Been very successful over the years in tournaments. Me and my partners won 3 bass boats in many tournaments, many championships, all kinds of different things, state team stuff, everything like that. So a lot of experience at that. And I grew up grew up fishing on the Susquehanna back by you in Pennsylvania.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. I used to fish the East Branch. I grew up fishing up by Wyalusing, Pennsylvania. That I had a cabin up there. Every weekend we'd go.
How was the fishing back then on the river?
If you caught a 4-pound smallmouth, that was huge.
When did you start really bass fishing in Wisconsin and develop that passion for tournament fishing and chasing smallmouth?
I moved from the Florida Keys to Illinois to be with my wife. And then from there, I started fishing tournaments from down there all the way up to here. And, literally in my very first tournament, I took second place, and I thought, hey, what's going on here? And back then in the state of Wisconsin, you weren't allowed to call. So my partner actually cut my bait off of my rod and went out and finished his limit off of it on that, and he ended up taking first place. So so it wasn't like it was a nice thing to do, but it was what to do back then. It was weird, but then the state changes their rules later in life, and it was nice to go out and keep going. But right away, I had a good start at it, and I'm nuts for fishing, as you know. So if there's an opportunity to go out there and go fishing and even make money, let's go. So why not? Then after 7 years down in Illinois, I actually had the opportunity to move up here and I did. I was a sales rep for an environmental company, and I was able to travel all over the state and do what I wanted to do.
Where would you say your home body of water would be located?
Wolf River. The Wolf River is my background. I mean, I love rivers. I'm a river rat, but literally I have Green Lake 15 minutes down the street from me that's over 300 feet. And you want to learn how to catch largemouth and smallmouth anywhere in the country, I'd say it's a great place to learn.
Yeah, one of those natural clear bodies of water. I mean, a lot of lakes throughout the country that hold smallmouth and largemouth are very similar to that style of fishing. There's so many different techniques that you can do. What would you say you fished all over the country. Where's your favorite place to chase smallmouth?
Oh, wow. I have not been back to the Susquehanna in many, many years, and I would love to get back there again, just for memories. Chasing smallmouth, wow. I love rivers. It's hard to get away from them. The Mississippi's awesome, but the Wolf River really puts out when you really want to. Hard getting big giants there. So I've been to St. Clair many times, in the river, on the Detroit River. We kicked butt out there one time, and we were just throwing deep cranks and snapping tubes. And I mean, that was an awesome, awesome experience over there as well too. I'm a current nut. So when it comes to current, I love figuring it out and doing the best in it. And there's many tricks that you can do that other people don't even think about. And it just catches more fish.
Well, I think we know where this conversation is going to steer towards, because there's a lot of us that probably have the opportunity to fish rivers, and sometimes with current, and it's different. It's obviously not a lake. It's different than a Great Lake. It's different than an inland lake. What are some key things? I'm sure it's all seasonal as well. Could you maybe walk us through a typical river scenario, spring, summer, fall,
Sure.
and what you look for? Let's start out with spring. For us in the northern part of the country, a lot of times that's once the ice starts to leave. Obviously other areas in the country, there isn't ice on these rivers, but how would you approach that when the water temp's low but starting to warm up pre-spawn in a river? And set the stage. Give me examples. If it's a fast-moving water, what you're looking for, all that.
Well, the big difference between lakes and rivers is, I mean, you used to be a lake guy. Totally were a lake guy. And hard part about a lake is you have everywhere to look at. You have everything in that lake to look at to find out where the fish are at. When you're in a river, the current is telling you where they're at. I mean, it literally positions the fish for you. So once you learn how to look at those current breaks, then you can catch fish all year round in many different ways. When spring first starts, I mean, we're out on the water when it's 45 degrees. I mean, we even have tournaments around here when the ice is first off. We start tournaments. And you have to go slow. You need to start slow. You need to start light. You drift baits. Like if you're out east, you trout fished. You fish like you're trout fishing. You want to just tickle that bait going across the bottom really slow. Let the current move the bait for you. My early spring bait, and this right here, where I got, there it is.
Tiny French fry.
French fry. Number one bait that's made me the most money. Guaranteed.
Really?
Yes. That lure, if you just throw it out there and let it do its job and just drift through everything, you'll feel a little tap. They don't drop it. You reel down and set the hook. That is the simplest of things. The faster the current, the little heavier the head you might need, but you want to go as light as can be and throw it up current, straight up in front of your boat, and just slowly drift it down through the pockets. And I mean, if they're there, they're going to eat it. It's just something that's washing by them. Mm-hmm. It's bait. Come early season, you want to throw those tubes, anything like that. You want it to be natural. Do not try to overdo it. You'll just work it right past them. When you're jerking things off the bottom, the current will sweep it so fast and so far that they're going so slow, they won't touch it. But the other part is they will also bite very, very light. And sometimes you'll think it's a rock and it's a bass. Sometimes you'll think it's a weed and it's a bass. They will literally swim with you like it's coming into the boat. And then all of a sudden it lets go and you're like, holy crap, that was a fish. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it is. Then once it starts getting up in the mid 50s, you can start doing a heavy jerk bait. And going crazy. Well, I throw jerk baits all the time. I'm a jerk bait nut. So,
okay.
It was weird. One year, I was reading the Bassmasters magazine, and they were teaching how do you fish a river kind of thing. And they were saying how you throw baits up current, you sweep bait side current. But he even said, and it's one of the top pros that said it. He said, whatever you do, don't fish down current and bring it up, because they don't do that. Well, let me tell you, in the spring, I catch a ton of fish bringing jerk baits up structure and catch them like crazy. Reason being is when you're in current and you're bringing a jerk bait down current, that thing's moving a mile like crazy. If you're bringing a jerk bait up current, it sits in their face. It literally, bring it up, it just sits there and rolls back even a little bit. Bring it up again. They can't take it. They will try and rip a rod out of your hand, even when it's 45 degrees.
Wow.
That has been one of my biggest baits ever. I mean, I've been going crazy with that for many, many years. Then later on, once it gets going, the temperatures start coming up in the 50s and stuff. They start moving into the pockets, into their channel areas. They'll start moving up on the walls, moving up on the rocks, and hitting the mouths of those pockets, being ready to move in. And when that temp comes in, I mean, early season, it's nice because they're stacked. You can catch 30, 40 fish in 45-degree water, and they are stacked. And it's phenomenal, and then you just find another place where they're going to stack up. You just find similar things that keeps going. A lot of times in the spring, they're sitting in 15 to 20 or to 11 feet, 10 feet like that. Then they move up to the 8 feet and the 5 feet. And then they move into the 4 feet and 3 feet to spawn. And what a lot of people don't know about smallmouth is they'll move in the back of the channels. I mean, all the way in the back, that's the spawn, because they need the warmth. They need the gravel and the rock, and they'll figure it out. You've seen them. We have a lot of smallmouth around here where there's pockets and weeds where there's gravel underneath it. And you would think a largemouth be there, but they're smallies. And most people will think, oh, I'm going small or largemouth fishing. I'm going largemouth fishing. Like, no, you're not. Then once they start to come in for the spawn, topwater season comes in. And most people won't even throw a topwater until it's, 60 some degrees. And you're throwing topwaters for smallmouth. If they don't take the bait, they are showing where they're at. And then you throw back with your French fry, your Senkos, whatever you like. I don't throw a Senko. I haven't thrown Senkos even when they first came out. I'm a French fry guy. My French fry, I put it on a jig head, and I actually thread it on. And when I thread it on a jig head, I mean, I can catch 20, 30 fish off of one French fry. And you guys can go through packages and packages of Senkos. Not to disrespect Senko in any way. Phenomenally, did a great job. I'm just not like everyone else. I just don't do what everyone else does. So I can skip my French fry as farther than any Senko can go. So
we'll finish up kind of the end of the fall, but I want to circle back on the French fry as well as some jerk baits. But yeah, keep going.
Once the spawn comes, then they start protecting the fry, and the top water really comes in, and they'll freaking just rip it and go all over it. You'll see them traveling 4 or 5 feet to come get it. Then and literally all they do is reverse the spring and come right back out to the mouths, go right back down to 8 to 10 feet, and then drop down into the deeper water when summer comes. And then after that, once they stabilize a little bit, rivers fluctuate. So rivers come up, they move up. When rivers go down, they move down. If there's no current, the sucky part is the whole river becomes a lake. So that means they spread out everywhere. Wherever they see opportunity, that's where they're going to go. But if there's no current, like I said, the rivers become a lake. Then great time to go largemouth fishing too, because then you have slop, you have weeds, and you have wood. So you try and back yourself up with everything. But when I'm smallmouth fishing, I catch a ton of largemouth too. They all love to be around the same kind of stuff. But you'll see that the smallmouth will be on the current side of a log, and the largemouth will be on the uncurrent side of the log and the inside. So whatever you're working, you're working. You just gotta fine tune your plans of what you want to do. But I mean, it's so simple to go fishing rivers. And like I said, I grew up on the rivers. I'm a river rat. We literally had a club back when I was a kid, and we were called the River Rats.
Right.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Another heavy thing I do in the summertime is they were saying about bringing things up current where you never, I actually love dragging heavy tubes, deep cranks, deep jerks, and big football heads. And I'll drag them. You have deep, whatever happens in a river. River comes up, you have a shallow flat, and then it drops into a hole. All right. And right off of that drop is where a lot of fish will sit, because they'll come up and they'll sweep up and come up and hit it. Well, a lot of times you have so much current that when you go to sweep that lure over top of that drop, it goes way back behind them. So they don't even hit it. So if you throw a heavy tube down in the hole and drag it back up and shake it coming up on the hill and stuff, they whack the hell out of it. And no one else is touching those fish because they don't do those kind of systems. Deep cranks, deep jerks, the same way. You're bringing it up and shoving it in their face, not just drifting it in their face. You're shoving it in their face.
When you have current though, like that, are you casting behind the boat or how are you? You are.
Yep. Yeah. And I do not have spot lock on my trolling motor. Do not have that. I've used an anchor for many years. I won that head-to-head tournament using an anchor. And people laughed at me, but yet I got paid, and I've got paid for many years doing that kind of stuff. I sent a gentleman down. He was going to fish one of the BASS tournaments down south, and no, it wasn't a BAS. It was just a bigger tournament. And I showed him. I said, "Here, tie up to a tree." It was one of those real heavy places where the current was ripping like crazy. You throw an anchor out, you're going to lose it because it's got jammed. Show him how to tie a rope up to a tree, and you can have 100-foot rope. And you can literally move your boat with your engine by just steering your engine, and your boat's going to go 10 feet to the right. Stir it the other way. It's going to go 10 to 20 feet to the left. The longer the rope is, the more you'll sweep. And you can sit in your boat and literally concentrate on one area for hours. And all you're doing is casting. You don't have to worry about nothing else. And that's kind of what Spot Lock does now. But if you don't have the expense to do that, it's a great thing to do. But you're sitting there throwing DAC behind the boat, and you're fishing those structures consistently every cast, and there's no worries about what else you're doing. And if you feel like you just fished that spot out, let another 20 feet out of your rope, and you're fishing a whole new spot you haven't touched, and you're still casting 100% of the time. Jimmy and I, we used to actually tie ourselves up to seawalls and stuff and fish pockets because the wind was blowing in many different ways and stuff. We've even had to use our hands to pull us down the wall or up the wall to get us in a different spot.
Right.
One of my main targets are seawalls. They have every depth there is. They'll sit at the bottom in the spring. They'll sit in the middle as the water warms up. Then they'll come up to the top for top waters. It's just when the bait fish move to where the bait fish move, that's where they got to be. And opportunities create opportunities. I call them sweet spots. I'm a sweet spot fisherman. If you see a current break coming in off of something, you need to be there. You need to be somewhere in that area because a current break is everything. And if you look at a seawall, and if they have the wood pilings, every piling is a current break, because it comes around and sweeps around that little piling, and then you'll have a little tiny gap area. You'll find spots that literally that one little piling will always produce a fish. It's very, very wild. Like I said, I call them sweet spots, and I run 30, 40 sweet spots in a tournament.
So those that may not be aware, the Wolf River's I'm going to consider it a medium-sized river. It's not like a river where you're going to see big barges and ships like you do on the St. Lawrence.
It's the size of Susquehanna, I'd say. Pretty close.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of turns, a lot of different current breaks, a lot of man-made structure, a lot of wilderness. I mean, I don't know how long that river is, but I'm guessing, it's
a 2-hour
to
ride
Shawnee
from Winneconne to New London, so there's all kinds of things there.
Right. No,
and then it really shrinks down up there. So
I'm just curious, can you take those same things that you learned on the Wolf River and apply it to, say, the Detroit River? And if so, kind of walk me through how you would fish a bigger river system with smallmouth and take that knowledge with you.
Definitely. I've been down to Lay Lake. I used my tricks on Lay Lake. We ran a 450 boat tournament. We took 18th, and I didn't know the lake well. And my partner says, "Hey, we got to get back." We got back to the weigh in a half hour early. And if we would have stayed up in the river, we would have done extremely well. So we ended up fishing the lake down there and not doing squat. So we ended up, I should have just ran right back up if I could, but I didn't have that kind of time.
Sure.
So I take them there. I've been on, my parents lived down by the Leesburg, the Harris chain. Use the tricks down there as well. When you go out and do tournaments, anybody that's listening to this, when they go to tournaments, everyone wants to go fish like they do down there. Don't. Learn if you know tricks and stuff that you do here, try those first before you go to that lake or get on that lake, because these fish have seen all those other tricks. Do what you know best to try that first. And then, go target what you like to target back home. Go target this, go target that. You'd be surprised what you will find with what you know and what to do. If you switch your game plan and be like everyone else, you're going to fish like everyone else and end up like everyone else.
That's a really good tip. In fact, I remember just the other day, I was on another podcast having a conversation about this, and they asked how I would fish a different body of water. And what you just told me really resonates, but I always would say, do your research, understand that on Guntersville, a red rattle trap in spring is the buzzword. That's what catches fish. But if that's not working, fall back on your strengths that you're familiar with.
Yeah, exactly.
You're telling us, though, go straight to your strengths and try that first, because those fish have seen that red lipless crankbait thousands of times. That makes a lot of sense.
Very true.
I like it.
I mean, you already are gamed in. You're already tuned in to what you do, So if it doesn't work, then you start slowly going, because what a lot of guys do is they'll go down there and start throwing a giant swim bait. They'll throw that chatter bait. They'll throw the square bill. Oh, I'm not doing any good. And they get depressed and their mind gets off. If you just figure a couple things out of what you know how to do and then can expand on that, it gets to be huge, good paydays.
Talk to me about your time on the Detroit River. I know you had some good finishes out there.
You kind of get spots
mentioning, maybe you were mentioning deep diving cranks and tubes. What were you looking for as far as locating those fish in that river system? Because there's a lot of current there, right?
Yeah, but we were using the current to our advantage, and we literally were throwing the crankbaits behind the boat and bringing it up the current. We would bang into all all the rock walls and rock drifts they have over there. They're just thrown into the system by the islands like crazy. And you have the little sweep spots behind them, little current breaks and everything. Well, we didn't sit behind them because it was so fast a current that your bait would just literally drift right over top of everything. And especially cranks, you come off of a rock rip and you got this dive and it's hitting all this rock, and all of a sudden it comes boom like this. Well, you already arced it over top of the fish that you're there. So if you bring it up the current and jam it into that hole behind them, why would they not want to hit it? It's right in their faces. You can literally just take your rod and just pull it a couple of times, let it go back, pull it a couple of times, let it go back.
So everything's reverse from your style, it sounds like.
At times, yes, for sure. I mean, I actually pull more baits up current in the spring than I fish down current, except for the French fry. The French fry is a drift bait. So, why not? It's in their face. If you're going slow, I've had clients out that I have lost probably 5-6 rods because they don't think that a smallmouth will hit hard, and it jerks right out of their hands, and they just get blown away. And then there's times when you're jerking, especially when it's early spring, you're jerking up a wall, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm stuck, and all of a sudden it starts pulling back, and because they hit very, very light at times, and then there's times they'll rip it right out of your hands.
So jerk baiting in a river. Let's start. I mean, is this something you do year round, or do you focus more on the spring? What are your thoughts on that?
Spring is definitely where I start to focus, but yes, I use it all year round. I've won many tournaments doing it too. I mean, there's many. I got 10 rods on the deck when I'm going to tournament. Every spot has got 3 different baits or 4 different baits I want to throw into it. But I also throw 10, 20 casts and I'm gone, because my sweet spots, if there's not a fish on it, I'm gone. But when you're bringing the jerk baits up current, it's a minnow coming up. Okay, when you're fishing and you pull up along a wall or rock, which way are the bait fish facing? They're always swimming up current, aren't they?
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah.
Right. So why would your bait coming down current be the opposite? So if I bring my jerk bait up current, I'm as natural can be. The bait's still hanging right in their face, and they're going
because everyone says the fish are looking straight into the current, and they're not going to hit something coming from behind. That's why. I'm not saying I believe that, but that's what we've been told, or that's what's in someone's brain. I really, I think you bring up some really interesting points. Fishing baits.
If you look at a jerk bait, everyone thinks because of the erratic action, they think it's a reaction bite. But if you do it the right way, it's a feeding bite as well. And when you're bringing it up current, you do not have to overwork that lure. It's a minnow going up along of a wall or up along a rock pile. And it's a simple opportunity for them to come up and bust it and hit it and take it apart. I throw buzz baits like crazy in the probably June to September. I'll throw buzz baits up on the rocks and seawalls and stuff. I've had smallmouths come up actually during a BFL tournament where one came out of the water, smacked my freaking buzz bait, and he knocked himself out. I literally net the fish.
Come on.
Oh, I'm totally serious. Totally serious. I literally net the fish and I'm working him to get him back alive. And the guy goes, "Aren't you going to put in a live well?" I said, "I didn't catch it.
Right.
How can I put in a live well?" And I've had 3 or 4 of those where they've knocked themselves out, because when the water comes up, you want to be as tight to that structure as you can get.
You've had 3 or 4 that have knocked themselves out?
Yes. Oh yeah. And they'll come up belly up and everything. You sit there and just literally you sweep them in, and I just revive them and let them go. They have done it many, many times. You talk to Jimmy, he'll let you know.
Wow.
But yeah.
Okay, there's a lot going on here. I need to know, basically, is there a jerkbait you recommend or use over others? Is there a deep dive in one, shallow?
I go deep.
Is this color?
I go medium. I go shallow. I even use suspend dots in the spring and stuff if I want to go real deep or I want it to sit there a lot. I do it on the main lakes as well. The colder the water, the slower you need to be. You want baits to be in the strike zone. Wherever you think the strike zone's at, you need to figure out. I'll throw deep divers up along them too. We did that down on Detroit River where the deep divers were just kicking ass. And if you can find the right walls that allow you to throw at it, go get them, because they're down there. I watch so many of these guys on the Mississippi on TV and stuff like that. They never, ever do what I do, which is really blowing my mind. I've never seen anybody work walls or rock like I do. It shocks me. It really does. I've had clients come up here and we'll be fishing all day with what they normally do and all this kind of stuff. And I said, let's go do some tricks and have some fun. First cast. And they're just blown away, and I call them Obadiah moments. Why don't you do this? Because, I can't believe you did that, but yet it makes so much sense.
Okay, if I can picture a river system with current, I'm looking at a seawall, and it has wood, to tie up a boat to, or whatever the case may be, every so many feet.
Sure.
How would you approach that? And let's say it's okay.
What time of year?
Let's just take early summer. Like the spawn's done. We know they're probably relating to that. What would be an efficient way to, or how would you describe your style of fishing that?
If it's early summer, buzzbait, topwater, and then probably a fast jerk bait, and you can bring them down current and you can bring them up current. They will go either way on that. You got to see what the current's doing to the bait fish, or the bait fish near the surface, or the bait fish in the middle. Wherever they're at, that's the level on that seawall that those fish will be hanging the most of. A lot of times they'll sit just, as you see on the screen in the lake, it'll be 2-3 feet below them, and they come up and sweep down and come down. They also act like wolf packs. Have you seen wolf packs on the river where they come up and it's really weird. People don't think fish work together, but they will literally come up and go out and sweep out and come in and push these bait fish up against the seawall or up against the rock or up against the sand flats. And they will just go nuts, like you see porpoises do it on TV and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's dead for 20, 30 minutes. And then they're out there. What they're doing is out there collecting more bait fish, and they come in. And you wouldn't be amazed how many largemouth and white bass will mix in with those schools chasing those bait fish to take care of that opportunity. It's just opportunities. They're just taking advantage of the system. So there's many spots that if I sat all day on the river, I could easily catch my good 5 fish limit, but I can't sit and do that stuff forever. It's just cast after cast. And I have so many sweet spots that I go to that I just run and run and run. Run and gun is what I do. But if I go to a sweet spot and I don't get fish bitten 10 casts, I'm to the next sweet spot because I know where they're going to be.
When you have that much experience on a particular body of water and the current breaks and things like that, is there a need, and how often does that work out where you find something new?
It's not really a need. It's I actually found a couple of sweet spots this last year that really shocked me. That it would come out of a channel and just like a channel coming in the river, and all of a sudden it's dropped off. And when you get that drop off coming out of like a weedy channel and stuff, there's clam beds. When you find clam beds on a river system, they are golden. And I mean, I whacked probably 3.5s off of that in 10 minutes.
How are you finding the clam beds? Is it by feel? Are you able to look at them on your electronics? How does one even go about doing that?
By feel. I've always been a by feel kind of guy, because you can go by with your electronics and clams rarely show up very much, but you can see a hard bottom, but it doesn't show that it's like little rocks or anything down there like a clam would be. But yeah, you can just, I grew up on a field. I mean, going out in Lake Winnebago, oh, there's gravel, you know, throw a heavy tube. Show you something here. You know, here's a 3/4 ounce tube in a regular tube. I mean, this thing here has been magical for me for many years. And we actually learned that out on the Detroit River. That was the first place we started using those heavy tubes. It's the same size as a regular tube head, but a 3/4, you can drag it up current. You can snap it through weeds. You can, I mean, I'm on Green Lake and I'm in 15 foot of water and I'm snapping a 3/4 ounce tube through the weeds.
Wow.
I'm whacking them. I mean, and everybody thinks, oh, you're throwing in the weeds with an open hook, you're going to get snagged. I'm throwing 30-pound braid with a 20-pound tippet and I'm snagging fish. And I'll tell you, there ain't no snagging weeds because it rips right through them.
All right. I got Jace. There's a lot of good information
Sorry.
here. Okay. So a 3/4 ounce football head, that's something you're going to use, and you're using with a little bit heavier braid, a little bit heavier setup, not your typical 8-pound fluorocarbon leader and stuff like that. I'm assuming you're using a longer 7.5 foot medium rod. Okay.
Yes, sir. Not medium heavy. Medium heavy, not heavy.
Medium
or not medium. You don't want that bend. You want a fast tip, and that's it.
All right. Let me write that down because I'm trying to crack a tube with a medium rod.
Oh, no.
Now, in open water, that's fine.
You don't. You want to rip that weed. That's all you're worried about.
In open water, I feel that's fine. But that's why I'm trying to drill you here when it comes to grass fishing.
Oh,
so you're throwing that exposed hook. Are you on an edge? Are you deep inside? Are you wherever you feel
I'm usually on top of the weeds throwing out. All depends where the fish are at that time of year too, because we have, you know, the flats on Green Lake and stuff. You can be over there and there'll be rock pockets. And within those pockets, you have, you know, on the outsides and around those pockets, all kinds of weeds. So I could be an 8 foot, you know, throwing in the 10 foot. I could be all kinds of stuff where I'm sitting on top of the weed bed, throwing out and bringing up that edge. Now, here's what really gets you in the shock is if you're on a weed edge and it's clear body of water and you throw out past the weed edge, right?
Okay.
That bait is coming up that hill with an action. Agreed? So if there's fish sitting on that weed edge and they're looking out, they see it coming for a freaking long ways. They know it's coming, and you'll catch fish more times on the outside edge than you will on the inside. All right. So now wait. So now when you get to that edge and you're snapping into it, they get overexcited and they freaking slam it. It's a reaction bite, and it's a feed bite as well.
Okay. I'm going to give you a scenario.
Go for it.
Very large hump that comes up to say 8 feet of water, and you got 20, 25 on the edge of it with a pretty good slope. And this grass is in that 8 to 10.
Spot. Yeah.
You would actually, so you would attempt to move your boat right up on top and then cast out.
First and foremost, though, that hump top is a feeding spot, right? Agreed?
Yep. Agreed.
So they only feed, 10 to 20% during the day on the top of that spot. So where do they go after that? Somewhere on the outside edge they'll sit. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
So now I can anchor my boat on top, and I have every freaking direction to figure out that thing out. Now, a lot of people will sit there and throw a small tube or something small and literally just drag it up the hill and everything like that. And it's going to take them an hour or two to finish doing that circle. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
So now if I'm throwing a heavy snap tube and I'm coming up that thing and the fish doesn't bite, I just covered that whole circle without wasting time, not finding any fish. But if I did get bit in a certain area, guess what? They're in this certain area now. They move off to this spot. Different winds and different currents will move them around that spot. So that could always change. But on that day, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got to think, you can always think it's only going to work on that spot. But yeah, I go out on the humps on Bago and everything. I'm throwing out. I'm not throwing on top. I don't do that stuff. Like I said, I'll come in, I'll fish that top real fast. Because if there's a fish there, it's going to hit right away.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm throwing out, I'm doing a reaction bite.
All right. So we're on top of the hump. You have the right setup, the right rod, medium heavy, braid to fluorocarbon, pretty heavy, 3/4 ounce weight. Walk me through your cast and how you're bringing that bait up.
You cast it a mile. That thing will throw as far as you want. You got to realize on Winnebago and stuff like that, it's a pretty big flat. It isn't like it's a major drop or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can cast it a long ways and you're covering hundreds of yards going around the whole circuit, and you can do it fast. Green Lake's the same kind of way.
So let's say you cast it and there's 20, 30 feet before the grass starts.
Are you dragging it? I'll sweep it and drag it. So I'm feeling the bottom, what's out there. If it feels like it's sand and gravel, then I can do some other little tricks, wiggling it through, snapping it up a little bit like a crayfish. You make your tube look like a crayfish, a couple double pumps and then let it sink, a couple double pumps and it'll do it.
So you're doing that and all of a sudden you get into that grass. Now you feel the grass and you're like, okay, I'm stuck. Now what are you doing?
Never stuck.
Okay. Right. But you're caught in it, which is a good thing. Yep.
You rip it.
And what's that look like?
I mean,
describe that to us.
You're ripping it like a strike. You're ripping it like a set and a hook. You want to rip that thing through there. And when you go to rip it and there's a fish on there, you better hold on to your rod. And I've lost 2 rods with clients losing on bites like that because they go to rip it and there's something that's just took it right out of their hands. And I literally found 1 rod the following fall. It was pretty wild. Yeah, that was pretty wild. But I mean, the bites is awesome at times, and there's bites where you go to rip it and it feels like a giant weed, and all of a sudden the fish comes jumping out of the water. So, but yeah, they love it, and I am not. I have a lot of people that say I tell them I rip it, and they say, "Well, I keep getting grass on my bait." They're not ripping hard enough. You need to rip that thing. That thing is a reaction bite. When that thing goes flying away and it goes hit, and also with the 3/4 ounce weight, you know how fast they drop. So when they drop fast, it just there goes something. I gotta go get it. And that's what they do. It's a reaction bite. I live off of reaction bites. I love it.
That got me excited.
Oh, well, you're over there by Washington and everything like that. And I've always told you got to go up and learn a river and how to fish some of those stuff with me. But no, you never did.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. But you could be over there and all those lakes over there. I guarantee they've never seen a snap tube. Have you ever thrown a snap tube over
there? Open water.
Open water. No,
not like through the grass like you're explaining.
Exactly. It is crazy.
It's actually got me thinking. I mean, I know how to.
Okay, now you have the heavy head. That's from that's from Bite Me. That's Mark Zona. And then you do the 3/4, and then you can actually do a 1/2 ounce. So that as you know, the speed difference is totally different. And I mean, here they are in a tube. It looks the same damn size of any other tube you throw. It's just a heavier head.
Do you prefer than like a standard 3.5, 3 3/4?
Actually, tube? Well, you guys know Dammer up at Get Bits. He poured me a bunch of. Now here's a 1/2 ounce small tube. I throw a 2-inch, 2.5 on that. A buddy of mine asked me to fish a lake that I've never fished with him before this year, and it was a small lake up by Wapaka, and it was a tournament. I've never been on, never even seen the body of water before, and he didn't know anything about it much either. And I said, "Well, what are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking." And as he was up at the check-in, I'm looking at the lake and I'm seeing different splashes coming up on different points of the lake. And I said, as he came back to the boat, and I said, "We're not going to even freaking start the big motor. We're going fishing right out here." And I literally put this little tube on right here with the 1/2 ounce. It's all just a little 2 1/4 or 2.5.
So,
and it had the 1/2 ounce in there, and I snapped that whole lake, and we took second place.
What size hook is that in there? That's perfect for that small tube, and it's 1/2 ounce.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Wow.
I don't know size of hooks and stuff. I don't pay attention.
Yeah.
What goes into my freaking bait works. And Dan is phenomenal at helping out and stuff like that. And I said, "Here's what I need. Any chance of doing something like this?" "Oh yeah, we'll get it done." And so very phenomenal with that. He's a great guy to do that kind of stuff.
So if you could get away with it, because I'm a smaller tube guy, I'm that 2.5, 2 3/4 inch. I mean, that's my zone.
Sure. But you're also an 8-pound and 10-pound test, maybe, or even lighter.
Yeah.
When you're snapping, that's even on a spinning rod now. All right. That's on a spinning rod with 15-pound braid and 15-pound tippet. I do not finesse fish. I am power fishing at all times, but I still look like I'm finessing. The only time I finesse fish is if I'm working current and it's really, really cold. And that's a pain in the butt. I don't drop shot. I hate drop shotting. And you pro at it, I know. But
listen, this is good stuff. We are we're deep into it. I have a bunch more questions, but I do got to we got to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Smallmouth Crush podcast. Don't rush out to the water just yet. We'll be right back after this break.
So, hey, guys, I teamed up with Beast Coast to help design a killer little football jig. It's called the OW, Open Water Sniper jig. It's great for largemouth, spotted bass, smallmouth. Designed to give you all the fish catching characteristics. The jig is like never seen before. Well, if you watch the Smallmouth Crush podcast with Paul, you know that's where the idea came from. Call it the magic bug. Call it what you want. It is a cool little finesse jig that definitely puts a lot of fish in the boat for me. You can check them out over at Beast Coast Fishing or Tackle Warehouse. A lot of great colors. Pumpkin, melon, sexy melon, and of course, Mothman. Straight black. Nothing wrong with straight black, that's for sure. Fewer strands, and the bait's really designed to emphasize the trailer over the jig. Tungsten resin, great hooks, and some killer colors with a little bit less strands than you might be used to. I fish it anywhere there's open water, rock, same place that you'd fish a tube is where I would recommend throwing the Beast Coast OW Sniper jig. So go check those out. Let's get back to the podcast.
We're back to the Smallmouth Crush podcast with your host, Travis Manson.
I don't even know. There's so many questions. We got to get back to that French fry because for one, listen, I am a fan of the French fry, and we throw it for largemouth on the Chesapeake Bay quite a bit.
Sure.
But I bet you I can count on one hand the number of smallmouth I've caught on a French fry. No, you're like, well, I've caught thousands, Travis. Tell me why I need to be throwing a French fry, man. Convince me.
How natural do you think it is? I mean, come on. It's the size of a worm. And I throw it on a spot stalker jig head. Usually 1/8 ounce head on there, but it also has a wire guard, so it's got a weed guard on there, a wood guard. It's not, exact science or anything like that. You throw it out there and you just literally just twitch it along and it drifts through the current and they just pick it up and snap on it. It's just the way it is.
What's your favorite color?
Green pumpkin and watermelon seed. Those are the two colors that I throw the most. And if they're not going to hit those, they're not going to hit French fries. Every now and then when the water gets crazy, I'll throw a real dark June bug or even a chartreuse pepper. And I mean, those are the four colors. That's it. And I rarely even throw the other two. It's just the first two. That's my dream. That's what works. It's really weird in clear water. The green pumpkin works great. And then on the rivers and stuff, the watermelon seed works great. But you can swap back and forth all day long. How
about a lake setting? You think there's a little bit of times when that would maybe outproduce other baits?
Early spring, Jim and I have proved it many times. We pull back into channels, and a lot of people, when they, most fishing shorelines. Well, when in springtime, they come up on the side of the shore and then they back down into the channel. They come up to the side of the shore and they back down to the channel. Guys will come in first thing in the morning and literally fish the sides of the walls and their boat's sitting right on top of the damn fish. We'll come right down the middle of that channel with a French fry and whack the crap out of them. It's just something they don't see. Again, I do things people don't do. But now with this podcast, I got competition.
Right. You just got to fish harder. That's all.
Yeah. But people in Wisconsin, they've known me using a French fry for many, many years. I mean, I've fished many states. And for you guys down in down south with spots, use these smallmouth tricks on your spots. I mean, I've been on the Coosa River. I've nailed giant spots down there with doing my little jerk bait tricks and my French fry. That's actually the French fry brought in our first limit when we were doing that big tournament down there. And then we went jerk baiting and just upgraded like crazy.
Well, those spotted bass set up very similar, I would imagine, those rivers, just like a smallmouth.
Exactly like a smallmouth.
Yeah. Wow.
They love it. The big Coosa River stuff. I mean, any current breaks there, they're going to whack on them. You go up to a seawall or a big rock bluff down there and you throw a jerk bait down those walls, you damn well better hold on, especially for those Coosa spots. They will hurt you.
So, Mike, I ask everybody on the podcast 2 questions. I think I already know what the answer is going to be for the number 1 question I'm going to ask. If I was to give you one bait for the rest of the year to fish for smallmouth, what would that be?
It'd have to be a French fry.
Exactly. I figured that already. Color, green pumpkin?
Green pumpkin.
Green pumpkin. Very good. Very good. What's your biggest smallmouth? Personal best?
6.5.
6.5. Nice. Where did that come from?
Sturgeon Bay.
Sturgeon Bay.
Yeah.
You act like Sturgeon.
There's a lot of them there. That's not saying much up there anymore. I mean, what's your biggest one up there?
8, but that was years ago, man. It's probably never gonna get broken.
Yeah. You seem so excited to say that,
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think it'll ever happen again. I mean, I hope.
The way it's going up there, yeah, they beat the heck out of the place. But
They
can travel from side to side too. You never know.
Right.
But I wanted to go back to the things that you were talking about, doing something special when fishing with Brian Keller. All right, we fished down on Gunnersville. I fish a lot of neck down areas. I love neck downs, and especially when there's bridges around. And down there, bridges are famous. Well, we went back into an area pre-fishing, and it was all flooded. Everything was flooded like crazy, and there's one bridge going back into another pocket. And there was a foot of water to go under that bridge, and I just started skipping. If you guys don't learn to skip and skip with a good spinning rod, heavy rod, whatever, I was flipping 5-pounders in the boat with my spinning rod. We were skipping little tiny 3-inch swim baits up under the bridge and everything, and they were there. They was coming in to go spawn back in that Back Bay that you couldn't get to. So if you find places like that, don't, going back to the tricks that we use up here, I'm throwing a 3-inch swim bait on Gunnersville and catching fish. I mean, I caught a 9.4 down there when I was there, so you can catch fish like crazy if you do what you know to do. But when you try to switch up and do what they're doing down there, they've already seen it. They've already seen it.
True.
So, go to something a little different. But I'm catching 5-pounders. We took 9th place in that tournament, and I took 2nd big bass. And we were skipping a freaking little swim bait up under a bridge, and they were coming and going and coming and going. So learn to skip. I even have fish when I'm post spawn and everything, and you skip a bait, they will chase it and hit it on the skip. You ever get in the time of the year when you're throwing lures across the body of water and all of a sudden you see the fish move out because you just scared the shit out of them? Well, if you skip the bait, they will chase it instead of run away from it. That's a major trick come probably post spawn, even early spawn, when they come up to get warm in the water. When you throw a bait, you literally see the wakes move away. Well, you just scared the shit out of them. And if you throw and skip a bait, it'll go right up to it. But when you're fishing seawalls and channels and stuff like that, skip your bait right up against that dang rock. Do not try to flip it and pop it because it's just going to make noise. You could skip that thing. You skip underhand, sidearm, all kinds of things. I mean, skipping is huge in our time. And then I go to a bass assassin come mid time where I can skip that thing into the logs. I can skip that thing everywhere and anywhere. No one else does it. No one does it. And I catch 4 and 5 pound bass doing it all the time. And I actually have spinning rods that are bait casting rods that are heavy bait casting rods made for spinning rods. And I'll put 30-pound braid straight right on there, and I can throw it over slop. I catch a ton of fish on slop, and I catch a ton of fish back in the trees, and I catch a ton of fish in lily pads and stuff. And the smallmouth, when they're up there, they love it. Throw it along the rocks, throw it on the seawalls, they'll go nuts. And you can skip them under docks like crazy.
So that's soft plastic jerk bait. Is that what we're talking?
Yep. It's exactly like a Zoom fluke, but it's heavier. It's a solid body. And when you glue it onto the head, you can catch 4 or 5 fish on it. It doesn't rip as much. The fluke does not skip anywhere near as far as that is. And I have people argue with me all the time, and I have to prove them wrong.
Right.
It's just the way they are.
I'm just thinking, man.
You're going, what the hell did I do that back there? Why did I do that?
you got a piece of structure. You got a little rock pile.
Yeah.
You're skipping that bait to land in the water, not just flipping in.
Yeah. It's a reaction bite there too. They're like, oh, there goes a bait. I mean, when we call them pikeys up here, when the small pike come out from the backwaters and when water starts coming down from spring rains and everything, they come pulling out. And literally I have seen a white bass, a smallmouth, and largemouth chase the same dang pikey because they're like candy. I don't know why that one fish or that one minnow is just so special to them, but they come out and crash that thing like crazy. And that is the perfect time to start skipping a bass assassin around.
So they like baby pike?
Baby pike. They love baby pike. You get done at the end of the day, you'll see them spitting them up.
So pike that were born that spring?
Yes. Yeah.
And how big are they about?
Maybe 2.5 to 3 inch max.
Do they have a certain color? Are they darker green? Do they look like
they're
like
more
you would
pale.
picture a pike?
When the sun, they're more pale to start with because they're still young. But once the sun starts coming out and they get near the surface, they start darkening up on their backs. Will start turning green. But then they're still more pale on the bottom. But I mean, you go up to a couple of different bay entrances where they come out of, and you'll be just amazed that the fish just blowing up at them when they come out. It's especially when the water's dropping fast. The water's dropping fast. You got to go pikey fishing. And
Okay, so the pike spawn back in marshes where there's current and rivers, things like that, little streams. They're young hatch, and then they're kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that when the water drops, that's pushing them back out to the main river, right?
Sure.
And that's what's happening.
Here's a scenario where I'm at. I live, well, this river I go to see down here is probably 8 miles from Lake Winnebago, but the pike come all the way up into the marsh over here, 8 miles away. I mean, it's a small creek where you drive over with a little tiny bridge and everything on there. And you can go in there and you'll see 4 foot freaking northern just laying there.
Yeah.
And I'll go over there every spring. So that's where they spawn at. But now the spring rains have brought that creek way up. You know, it's a nice sized spring. Once that water stops dropping, those pikeys are going to get stuck back in there. So they move out and they move right back down the main lake at some point in time. They don't stay there and live until they're 4 feet long.
Sure.
They're heading back out. So when they come out, just be there. And I mean, they'll be in the rivers too. You'll see them when they'll travel back and forth in rivers when there's a lot of them and everything. But I mean, you'll see fish chasing them like crazy, and that's what they're going after. And pikeys, they skip across the top of the water. When they're getting away, they skip. It's really wild. They're jumping out of the water to get away from whatever's chasing them, and they skip across the water. You don't see shad or anything like that do that. You know, you'll see the wave action of a shad, but you won't see skipping or anything like that. Pikeys will be jumping out of the water to get away from fish. Nice. And that's when they get really excited.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jeez. Good stuff. Good stuff, man. All right. I'm going to invite you back on a live show at some point. I think you got some amazing knowledge, and we'd love to pick your brain. And if you're willing to give out a little more secrets and maybe elaborate on this one, I know we're going to have a lot of good feedback after this podcast. So perhaps sometime over this winter, Mike, if you're available, we'd love to have you on one of our live shows, because I think you, man, it was a very, very good conversation here. How can people follow you? I know you have a guide service. Can you talk a little bit about that and how they can contact you?
I've been working Mike's Quality Guide Service for 24 years now. I'm on Facebook. I'm not a great Facebook person, just so you know. Just if you get onto the website, give me a call, whatever you want to do. But you can also put messages on there, whatever you want to do. Talk to me. I'm just not a great Facebook person, just so you know and warn you. I've designed lures over in the past and things like that. There's so many things to talk about. There's just so much out there. If you have questions, send me a question. I'll answer it as much as I can. The biggest problem I have with a lot of people is they want to come out in the boat and they don't cast. They don't know what they're doing when they go cast or anything like that. Get in the backyard and practice. I mean, that's where you need to practice your casting. You don't want to get your boat out in the water and piss yourself off all day. Get in the backyard, put some targets up. I had a dad call me one time. He says, Mike, my son just loves to fish and wants to learn how to be better and all this kind of stuff. But I tell you, when we go out, we just don't catch him. I said, well, how's he casting? He says, oh, and I said, make a challenge out of it. You go back there and you challenge him, put dollars on it, put chores on it, whatever you want to do, and challenge him to go and you two guys do a competition. And you'll be amazed that you'll be coming home from work and he's out in the backyard practicing because he wants to kick your butt. So get it done. But I also wanted to show you guys one of the lures I designed.
Absolutely.
If you see on here, can you see it? I'm not sure where we're at. See that
That's
bill?
Pretty good. Yep.
This is my swim jig. All right. Here's the big hook. It's got a weed guard and everything like it. Nice and blue, everything like that. But it's got an adjustable head on here. All right. You see that head?
Yep.
You can turn it this way. You can turn it this way. And what that does is it swims to the side. You turn it to the left, it goes left 10 to 15 feet. Turn it to the right, it goes right 10 to 15 feet. So if I'm fishing a seawall and I throw this thing down there, I don't have to throw my bait right on the wall. I can throw it 5 feet out, 10 feet out, keep your line up in the air a little bit. So when you start reeling, it zooms over there, let it sit there. And it will bang as you're reeling, it will bang into every structure that's in that way of that seawall, and it'll come up. How many fish you know that when it bangs off of something won't go after it? It's a reaction bite.
Right.
When you're banging into things, you're getting bit.
Absolutely.
So you got to do things. I do that with a swim bait. I have a buzz bait and a spinner bait to go as with it too. They're pretty cool. A lot of fun. Buzz bait fishing is one of my favorite things when the smallies are on that, because they just tear it up. They literally will come after that thing like crazy, especially when the pikeys are out. And if it's the right time of year, it's a good time to be out. But yeah, it's just, there's so many tricks of the trade to do that it just puts fish in the boat. And most people just concentrate on flipping and pitching and all this kind of stuff. it doesn't make sense to me to do the same thing as what everybody else does. It just
I see
doesn't.
that.
Just
I
doesn't.
see that. Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway is perhaps fishing a current section a little bit differently, reversing how you would normally fish it.
Yeah.
Of course, you got me thinking about that French fry. Now we're going to be cracking a tube in some grass a lot more.
I want you to tell me how you do down there, because
Yeah.
I know that works everywhere. I do it in Florida, and I even had Tom Mann in the boat. I did a guide trip with my sister down there, and we were fishing a weed bed and stuff. And I'm like, "Do you have any tubes?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "You have any tubes?" He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, yeah," but I had to do it Texas rig because they didn't have any of the tube heads.
Sure.
And I threw a heavy tube out there, and I started cracking them. He's like, "What the hell?" He learned something that day. But I learned from him too. He was throwing a shallow Carolina rig with a only small little weight on there. I don't do that. And I was really surprised he was whacking them on that. But we had a fun time whacking it with everything. Then I showed him my lures. We went to a reed bed, and I took my lure and put it up there through the reeds, and it hit every reed going through. And he was like, "What the hell?" So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Good stuff, Mike. Thank you for coming on. We are going to get you back on the live at some point in the future.
No problem, buddy.
And really, really appreciate this.
Oh, thanks to the Real Shot. They're great
Nice.
guys. Brian's been a good guy with me. Yeah, get up there and get some of the stuff. He's growing like crazy and can help you out with hunting, fishing, all kinds of different things.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. And as always, guys, until next time, we'll see you on the water.
All right. Practice, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening today. Make sure that you're subscribed to the show and follow us on Instagram at SmallmouthCrush. Also, the YouTube channel, SmallmouthCrush. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and comment with a review below. And as always, until next time, we'll see you on the water.